Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, today I'm proud to say that this year marks my 30th year of service to this party. I did 2 years, the State of the Nation debate in the upper house, and this is my 28th presentation here as representative of the people of East Kingston and Port Royal. Thanks be to God. God is good. All the time. Madam Speaker, I regard service to one's country and people as one of the highest forms of service. I have served willingly and joyfully through good and bad times. And Madam Speaker, if I were given the opportunity to relive my life, I would repeat what for me has been a life of total dedication and commitment to my country and my people. Today, I rise to address this House on the portfolios of energy, climate change, and agriculture. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, in all of this, I have come to recognize one thing that the Jamaican people want. The Jamaican people want to be happy. They are not looking to be in a perpetual state of ecstasy. They simply want a roof over their heads, a viable job, live in a safe community, and general contentment that their families are doing and living well. But Jamaicans, Madam Speaker, are not happy today. Madam Speaker, if they were, we would have had elections already. At this point, Madam Speaker, the Jamaican people have rejected and dismissed any notion, any whispering of prosperity. They see the country heading in the wrong direction. And if prosperity were any further out of reach, we would need a telescope to spot it. The Jamaican people, having given this JLP government 2 terms to try to make them happy and bring them so-called prosperity, are disappointed and dissatisfied. They now want a change that will give them greater power over their lives, a change that will see them as the center of all positive development, a change to a new government that cares for the people. That's right. And Madam Speaker, there are many reasons for this unhappiness. But for me today, I'm going to focus on one in particular: the high cost of living. This has been a feature of life for the past 9 years. And with the high cost of living comes stagnant income because our economy itself is not growing. Madam Speaker, a major factor driving both the high cost of living and the lack of growth is energy. The high cost of electricity has been a staple in Jamaica for the past 9 years. Unfortunately. Our consumers pay high bills at home and then pay higher prices for basic goods and services, again affected by the high price of electricity. Meanwhile, our economy limps along uncompetitive and weighed down by these costs. Madam Speaker, every year when I address this Parliament, I not only speak about the problems facing the energy sector, but I also provide proposals towards solutions. yet my suggestions are largely ignored by the government. Thank God this is the final time I'm going to speak from over here. Next time we'll be on that side and we'll be responsible for implementing these policies that I have been proposing. Madam Speaker, the minister is not in the House just now, but there's a crucial matter I want to address at the outset. Last year, as I did before in 2023, I alerted the country to the pending end of the JPSCO license. This license ends in July 2027. I urge the government from 2023 to use this opportunity of a pending end of the license as leverage to start to effect some changes from then. I said so in 2023. I repeated last year. I even spelled out some of the specific things that they could do. For example, we have been fighting to get the operators in the special economic zone to be able to generate and provide their own electricity. I think this could have been achieved before if you're smart about it and if you negotiate well. So we are without that today. And of course, true to form, the advice and guidance was ignored. During the Standing Finance Committee earlier this year in February, I reminded everyone that on the 7th of July this year, the government must inform JPSCO of its intentions about the negotiations for a new license. Because if it doesn't, the license that currently exists will be renewed automatically. The government responded by saying that the World Bank was going to be providing assistance. And I'm disappointed because after 9 years, the only thing this government has mastered is to outsource its homework. This is work that should have started in 2023 when I gave notice. Stakeholders have told me, Minister, and you have confirmed that the World Bank team was recently here conducting interviews. Minister, I would have expected if a team from the World Bank is coming to offer guidance, then the first stop, or one of the first stops, should be to the opposition. This is a matter that transcends politics. The minister told me last week that when the team comes back, I'll be given an opportunity. I'll be given an opportunity. But, so, Madam Speaker, I say to the government, we are now in May, and the government is only in the preliminary stages of consultation. I repeat, this consultation should have started 2 years ago and completed by now. I'm also very concerned, Madam Speaker, that the Energy Council, which was established in 2012 to address issues just like this, has not been convened to provide guidance. Minister, could you say when you speak, what is the status of the Energy Council? Is this government committed to meaningful consultation with stakeholders in the sector? So let me be clear, Madam Speaker. The negotiations for a new JPSCO license is fundamental to our future, and especially crucial to the twin issues of cost of living and lack of growth. The situation is nothing like it was in 2001, and the minister keeps on saying that I was the one who signed the 2001 license. I was a part of the administration, so I can't deny responsibility, but I was not the minister, just to be clear. Right. So now, Madam Speaker, just as the previous administration, which we were a part of, was bold and visionary in negotiating better terms with cable and wireless in 2000, we too must be bold now in terms of this. If the World Bank has reached out to me, and when they do, I would have suggested the following areas for reform. Firstly, Madam Speaker, I think the time has passed when we should be granting 20-year license.
Yeah.
I think because of technology, we need now to look at what changes can happen in a life cycle of a license. And I don't believe that we should be contemplating licenses beyond 10 years. In fact, I would be satisfied with a 5-year license.
Makes sense.
Madam Speaker, I would also like to suggest to the Minister, in contemplating what to do in July of this year, that this right of first refusal that the JPS now has, which gives them the right to put on new generation without contemplating other sources, other suppliers, that right be abolished and that all future generation be done by international competitive tendering. And thirdly, Madam Speaker, I think now is the time, having lost the opportunity before, to allow the special economic zone operators to be able to provide their own electricity and to supply within the zone. I believe after this, we are going to see exponential growth in the area of economic zones. I also want, Minister, and even though you brought regulations here recently, I believe that JPSCO has to be forced to come to the table to implement the wheeling arrangements that are now in regulations, but they have not been forced to implement. And also, Madam Speaker, we believe that the time has come for a revolution in solar rooftop provisioning, and that can be a tremendous source of power to our people. And I'll come back to that later on. And also, as you contemplate the new license, there is need, Madam Speaker, for greater consumer rights measures to be in place. For example, the removal of exemption of liability, which I believe are provisions that are unconscionable. And we also have to have more elaborate guarantees for service standard in relation to JPSCO. So let me be clear. Our intentions, we are not here to destroy JPSCO. Far from it. The government owns shares in the company. We are here to lower the price of electricity for people, so that our people will progress with a lower standard of cost of living and greater economic growth. When the economy grows, everyone benefits, including JPSCO and other producers. Right now, our average electricity use is shockingly low because people can't afford to do what they want with more use of electricity. In developed societies, usage is 2 to 3 times greater than it is in Jamaica. When the price of electricity is reduced, JPSCO will benefit from increased usage. And also, there are other opportunities for revenue streams by the JPSCO. There's a growing market for electric vehicles, and so on and so forth. Madam Speaker, I'm not going to be distracted by the Minister. I want to turn quickly to the issue of electricity theft. Madam Speaker, I will soon be sounding like a stock record on the issue of the stealing of electricity. The fact is that in 2021, I provided this House with detailed suggestions on how this problem can be dealt with by the government. I followed up with a private member's motion from then to engage in a meaningful debate focusing on the role of government as a major player to solve this national problem. To date, nothing has happened, so that consumers continue to bear an additional expense of about 20% to their electricity bills. Let me quote from the Minister's sectoral presentation last year. He says, among the Ministry's priority initiatives is the non-technical loss reduction. And he went on to give an elaborate statement as to what is being done to lower the level of electricity theft. And the strategy that he outlined would cost $74.5 million. From the announcement of those interventions last year, we have heard nothing. And so I am hoping that when the Minister speaks next week, we are going to hear about what has happened in relation to the promises that were made to reduce the amount of electricity. Well, let me go to that right now because I want to talk about GCT on electricity bills. So, Madam Speaker, recently the government attempted to provide a benefit to consumers by adjusting the GCT on electricity bills. The net effect has caused confusion. Firstly, consumers using below 150 kilowatt hour per month will now, for the first time, be paying GCT at 7%. They were granted a subsidy and a rebate of 10%, so thereby the benefit was a 3%. Positive benefit. But this smacks of electioneering, Madam Speaker. You know why? Because we don't know today when that subsidy and rebate will be removed. When you give a subsidy and you offer a rebate, especially in a situation where you don't control the operations of the company, then you need to indicate what is the specific time frame for this rebate and subsidy. What it means is once those rebates and subsidies fall, those people who were not paying GCT up to that point in time will be paying 7% on their bills. Also, Madam Speaker, the minister did announce about a prepaid facility that they were going to do to encourage people to become a part of the formal market. For the first time, these people, Minister, are going to be charged GCT on their bills. So I believe the minister, when he speaks, will have to provide clarification because we were told that this was a benefit and it really is not operating in that way. Minister, I won't even bother this year to go into Petrojam. I will wait next week on your presentation to hear about what is the future of Petrojam. Last year they suffered a loss, and I believe it has a lot to do with the indecision as to the future of Petrojam. But I want to turn now, Madam Speaker, to an issue I alluded to earlier. A major plank of our policy is to promote the rapid expansion in the deployment by individuals of renewable energy, especially using solar technology. A special incentive scheme will be announced shortly, focusing on access to low-cost financing and a much straightforward process to secure energy licenses with a built-in attractive feed-in tariffs. Madam Speaker, our future PMP government has committed to build 50,000 houses, affordable houses, within 5 years. And it's amazing, party leader of opposition, how people have gravitated to the notion that we're going to be solving the problem of housing for poor people finally. So, Madam Speaker, with those 50,000 houses, we are going to be giving power to the people. They will have through solar rooftop sufficient electricity for their needs, and they will also be able to expand beyond their needs to provide electricity for the national grid at a lower cost than currently the grid is able to accommodate. So this is what we mean by power to the people. Power to the people. Power to the people. Mr. Minister, you'll be happy to know that I am moving now quickly to the issue of climate change, and then I have to deal with agriculture. Madam Speaker, climate change is the single greatest threat to the future of humanity. It is now firmly placed in the category of an existential crisis. The need for urgent and meaningful measures from all nations is as great now as it was when the Paris Summit in 2016 was held and various commitments were made. Our party, we on this side, remain committed to a number of principles. The international pledge to restrict the growth for global temperatures to rise by less than 2 degrees Celsius. 2, climate justice and common but differentiated responsibilities. This is in recognition of the duty of developed countries to do more and go further in their commitments as a result of their historical responsibility for greenhouse gas emission. Our advocacy on this aspect will be far more assertive than we see now by this current government. Financing and Green Climate Fund, the GCF, which sets aside finances to climate change mitigation and adaptation, is a crucial plank of the climate agenda, and we intend to push that further. Then, Madam Speaker, we are going to be focusing also a lot on the reduction of emissions from forestry. This is an area that we have largely overlooked. The reduction in greenhouse gas emission from deforestation and forest destruction have been quite enormous. We are also supportive of measurements, reporting and verification in terms of how the continued impact of greenhouse gases is having on our global marketplace. And then finally, in terms of our principles, we intend to also work towards this green energy transition, which is the replacement of fossil fuels by various forms of renewable energy. And Madam Speaker, the ongoing battle for dealing with the climate change crisis must continue to be a global one, that Jamaica must be at the forefront. So we welcome the recent appointment of Professor Dale Weber as Jamaica's first special envoy for climate change, and we wish him well. We now await his frequent briefings to this Parliament. Madam Speaker, I believe this issue is so crucial to our future that we need at this Parliament to establish a standing parliamentary committee just to deal with climate change issues. And rather than Professor Dale reporting just to the minister, he really ought to come here on a regular basis to report to the Parliament on what are the issues taking place, what is Jamaica doing. And I therefore propose that we have a climate change committee for Parliament.
Visionary.
Madam Speaker, we know that Jamaica, like so many small island developing states, is particularly vulnerable to the effects of climate change, not only in terms of our natural resources, but also our social well-being and our economic development. Subsectors such as tourism, agriculture, fisheries, forestry, and water are very climate sensitive. Yet, we saw recently the unregulated development and destruction of mangroves at Fort Rocky. And prior to that, in 2020, we saw NEPA's permit denial for quarry mining in Dry Harbor Mountains being overturned by the Prime Minister himself for economic benefit in spite of the irreversible damage that would be caused to a limestone forest. Actions like these are untenable. I'm going on to agriculture. Madam Speaker, let me turn to a matter fundamental to our nation's future, our agriculture sector. Still under the theme championing change, I present today an honest assessment of where we stand and, more importantly, where we must go. Our agriculture sector, the backbone of Jamaica's economy and rural communities, is at a crossroads. It is time to rally together, take decisive action, and champion the change our farmers and our nation urgently need. My colleague and spokesman on agriculture, Dr. Dayton Campbell, has already highlighted many of the critical issues, and I join him today in emphasizing the need for bold reforms. While the minister has made some efforts, they have been woefully inadequate if we want to maximize the full potential of agriculture and to do right by our farmers. So let's not sugarcoat it. Agriculture is more than just a sector. It is the backbone of Jamaica. Supporting over 262,000 farmers, farm families, and contributing about 9.2% to our GDP, it sustains countless livelihoods and provides employment for 20% of our workforce. Yet, despite its importance, our sector faces significant challenges that threaten its very future. Challenges that the minister is either blind to or simply refuses to see. Over 80% of Jamaican agriculture remains subsistence level, small scale, often unprofitable, and vulnerable to even passing cloud and market whim. In the fourth quarter of 2024, we saw a 12% decline in agriculture, contributing to a 1.8% downturn in the broader economy. When our agricultural sector suffers, so does our economic stability. But the minister, it seems, is content to fiddle while Rome burns. Our major challenges include limited access to land, inadequate infrastructure like irrigation, roads and storage, insufficient financing, and poor market access. Predatory harassment continues to plague our farmers, eroding their income and discouraging investment. If we do not address these issues head-on, we risk further decline and the erosion of our agricultural heritage, leaving future generations to wonder how a nation so rich in land and talent could be brought so low by poor vision and even poorer governance. Left unattended, these problems will not simply disappear. They will become entrenched, making it even harder for our farmers to provide for their families or compete in our modern world. Madam Speaker, it is high time we stop treating these chronic issues as background noise and start treating them as a national emergency. They truly are. Time comes, time comes. Land, Madam Speaker, is the foundation of productive agriculture. Jamaica's land reform history is rich, from post-emancipation initiatives to the Land Settlement Act and the PNP's land lease program. Sadly, however, the agri-parks, which we introduced in 2005, have underperformed. Only 30% of the available land is currently being utilized. This shows the government's lack of commitment to producing locally. We are committed to expediting the issuance of land titles, because a farmer with no title is like a runner in a race with his shoes tied together, going nowhere fast. Land titles will enable our farmers to access real financing and have collateral they can usually use. We'll tailor-made, Madam Speaker, leases to specific farm activities, introduce performance-based leasehold improvements, and reform our land tax regime. Moreover, prioritizing youth and women in land distribution will promote inclusivity and innovation. Idle lands must be acquired and redistributed to serious farmers, those who will cultivate, innovate, and grow. Madam Speaker, access to finance remains a critical barrier. We propose developing an agricultural development fund that will provide targeted, sustained investments. This fund will support infrastructure, will support research, will support technology adoption, and disaster risk mitigation. A percentage of this fund will also be allocated to the PC banks, enabling it to offer loans to farmers. This will ensure that our agricultural sector receives the financial backing it so desperately needs. Madam Speaker, to further stimulate growth, we propose the creation of an agricultural free zone, strictly for export-led production. This zone will attract investment in agro-processing, value-added production, and exports. It will offer tax incentives, modernized facilities, and streamlined regulatory support, creating an environment where innovation flourishes, jobs are created, and Jamaica becomes a competitive player in global markets. This, Madam Speaker, is what you call planting seeds for the future, not just planting headlines for tomorrow's newspaper. Madam Speaker, only 15%.
House Leader, the member's time for speaking has expired.
Madam Speaker, the member's time for speaking have been expired. I beg to move that it be extended by 15 minutes to allow him to complete his presentation. The
Question is that the member's time be extended by 15 minutes to allow him to complete his presentation. Those in favor? Those against, the ayes have it.
I thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and for all the members who have requested that I continue my presentation. Madam Speaker, believe it or not, only 15% of our arable land is today irrigated. Our National Irrigation Development Plan must be fully implemented and expanded so farmers can produce year-round, rain or shine. Improving farm roads is equally vital. Right now, some of our farmers need a 4x4 or sometimes a boat just to get their produce to market. Cold storage capacity must be expanded. And in the meantime, we must implement solar refrigerated containers to reduce post-harvest losses and to ensure fresh produce reaches consumers promptly. A modern, efficient infrastructure network is the backbone of a resilient agricultural sector. Our current financing landscape, Madam Speaker, is frankly a desert. Only $147 million, Jamaican dollars, in loans were disbursed in 2023. That's not support, Madam Speaker. That's pocket change. The PNP will increase budget allocations and promote public-private partnerships in machinery, irrigation, cold storage, and marketing. Collaboration with the private sector is essential to drive innovation and efficiency. Unlike the current approach, we don't believe in all talk and no tractor. Madam Speaker, in today's digital age, technology offers unprecedented opportunities. We will leverage digital platforms to connect farmers directly with buyers, hoteliers, distributors, and retailers, cutting out the middleman and cutting out the old excuses for extortionate prices. We propose implementing an agricultural monitoring system that utilizes drones for crop monitoring and fertilizer spraying, technologies that enable precision agriculture. Drones will provide real-time data on crop health, pest outbreaks, soil conditions, and irrigation needs, allowing farmers to apply fertilizers precisely where needed, to reduce waste, and to increase yields. Additionally, we will promote hydroponic farming practices to maximize productivity and resource efficiency. Then, Madam Speaker, we intend to partner with the UWI, with CASE, and other institutions. We will invest in research into plant varieties, animal genetics, and modern farming systems. Our research facilities at Bodles, Orange River, Montpelier must be strengthened to support innovation. Madam Speaker, Prairie Lasting remains a scourge. To combat it, we will propose that Prairie Lasting be included under the Proceeds of Crime Act. If someone is convicted of stealing farm produce, their assets must be liquidated to restore the farm to its previous state. Additionally, we will move the burden of proof in these cases from the claimant to the defendant, ensuring that those accused of theft must prove they came by the goods lawfully. Also, Madam Speaker, we propose a comprehensive school feeding program. According to the FAO, 55% of Jamaicans are suffering from food insecurity, and among school children, this translates to approximately 260,000 children. But while the government has announced an increase in the breakfast program, it is still not enough. We will establish a proper school feeding program where all needy students receive at least one nutritious meal per day with ingredients sourced from local farmers. Madam Speaker, we have a SMART program, a sustainable management of agriculture through research and technology. We will facilitate the upgrade of livestock genetics to improve productivity. For example, heifers in Jamaica currently produce around 7 liters of milk per day, while their counterparts elsewhere produce up to 18 liters. We will also plan to assist our fisher folks in expanding freshwater fishing and upgrading livestock genetics. Madam Speaker, this SMART plan will include the use of drones not only for land preparation, but also for crop monitoring and fertilizer spraying. This will also support more efficient resource use and higher yields. Additionally, we will promote hydroponic farming practices to increase yields and conserve resources. So, Madam Speaker, agriculture is the heart of Jamaica's sustainable future. With only 15% of our land irrigated, 30% utilization of agri-parks, and a food importation bill that has nearly doubled from US $834 million in 2016 to US $1.5 billion today. Not due to inflation, but because of increased tonnage, we face a crisis that cannot be ignored. The government had pledged to reduce the food importation bill by 25% by 2025, yet we have made no such progress. Under no circumstances can the Minister of Agriculture believe that they're doing a good job. It is time to act decisively for the farmers of St. James, Westmoreland, St. Anne, Trelawney, and all of the other parishes. And St. Elizabeth, Yeah. We must do right by our farmers and secure a brighter future for all Jamaicans. We are committed to championing these changes in agriculture. So, Madam Speaker, I close this presentation with a deep sense of urgency and a firm belief that we have been running out of time. Jamaica is facing an energy crisis. We remain too dependent on imported fuel while the rest of the world surges ahead with renewables. We are vulnerable, we are exposed, and we are unprepared. We are also one of the most climate vulnerable countries on earth. Yet we behave as though we have the luxury of time. We do not. Rising seas, extreme droughts, and the stronger hurricanes are already here, and they are only getting worse. And Madam Speaker, our food security is hanging on by a thread. More Jamaicans are hungry today than a decade ago. Farmers are struggling, inputs are expensive, imports are rising, and still no clear plan to feed our people in a time of global instability. This is not just mismanagement, it is a failure of vision that Jamaica can no longer afford. We need bold, courageous, and competent leadership to move us from crisis to resilience. We need leaders who understand that energy, climate, and food are not separate issues, but the backbone of national security and development. Our party, with the member from South St. Andrew as our leader, we are ready to take charge of this government. We are ready to implement the transformative policies that Jamaica desperately needs. Not tomorrow, not next year, but this year. This is not the time for small thinking. This is not the time for empty promises. This is the time for change in order to progress real growth. And only the People's National Party has the courage, the plans, and the political will to deliver that change, so that our children inherit a country that is sustainable, sovereign, and secure. Madam Speaker, time come to champion change. Let's support Jamaica future.